Hey, Dr. Reyes with the Weight Control Channel. I want to talk to you something about that's related to healthcare, but it's really a tax thing. I notice that a lot of my patients like to use their health savings account to pay for like co-pays or their medications and so forth. And let's talk about what is an HSA and what you shouldn't be using it to pay your medical expenses. You're like, what? Okay, so let's get started real quick. HSA is a health savings account, and this is what the Google AI has there. And so you can read what some of the benefits are. So this is, first of all, the first qualification is you have to have a health insurance plan that allows for it. Basically, you got to have a deductible that meets certain IRS requirements. In my experience, and I just learned this a few years ago, in my experience, the insurance company will market itself or that plan as a health savings account eligible. And there's an IRS definition in publication 969 here on what qualifies. And so you can actually check that yourself to make sure you qualify. So it's basically just an account. That's all it is. Now, the cool thing about it is it's called a triple advantage account. And please go look at other YouTube videos about this from CPAs and lawyers out there who can definitely speak from more of that authority, because I am a professional, but I'm not a tax professional. And so when you put money into the account, okay, you can just move money in, or sometimes the company will match it or put also money in it. It reduces your taxable income for that year. And then it grows tax-free. And then when you take distributions, or you take money out for a qualified distribution, qualified expense, if you want to call it that, then it is tax-free. This is the only account that does that. So it goes in, you get a tax deduction, it grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free. So this is actually not, if you are, depending where you're at in your income and in your cash flow, most of us will try to use this as a retirement account. So you're not required to use it for your healthcare expenses for that year. The cool thing is you can just accumulate all the receipts. So all the things that are qualified expenses, co-pays, some insurance premiums you possibly could pay. And under publication 969, you could go read that prescription drug plans, contacts, dental visits, all of those you can accumulate over a tenure and then take it out. So that's the key part. You don't have to do it in the year that you get the expense. You can accumulate it. Always verify with your CPA and tax lawyer about it, but you can accumulate all these expenses and then take it out tax-free. That's the genius part of this. So, but you're like, well, why should I bother doing this? Let's say you are eligible for it and you're like, well, why should I bother doing it? How much can you put in? Well, let's take a look at it. Let's assume something. Let's say you're a single person and you're in a tax bracket, you make $50,000, let's do $55,000, and you're in the 22% tax bracket. And then you contribute, the max for 2024 is $4,150. So you put in $4,150, and there's different places where you can just go create an HSA account. Fidelity is one of them, Health Equity. I'm not sponsored by any of these people. That's just the top two when I looked to open up mine. There's some other ones out there you can go Google. And so you do 22%. Let's just do the math real quick. So let's get the calculator out. The calculator, there it is. So you're like, okay, well, you put in $4,150 and you're in that tax bracket here, 22%, and you made too much. You made that much money times 0.22. So by putting that money into your HSA, you just reduce your tax payment to the IRS by $913. I mean, if you don't want that $913, then don't do this. But you're like, well, I can't afford to invest that money in the HSA. I need it for expenses. Well, at least put it in there and then you can take it out. And in that way, you get the $913 benefit. Makes sense, right? So that's a smart way to do it if you have to use those expenses. Ideally, you would put it in and you can invest it, right? So you can invest it in the usual stuff. If you don't know how to invest stuff yet, there's plenty of videos on that. I personally like to do index funds or gamble a little, and I'll buy one stock or a couple stocks here and there with my HSA. So that's something to think about. Now, remember, just like it is just an account. So if you put the money into an account and you don't actually buy anything with it, if you're using Fidelity or any of these Wall Street firms, then it's just sitting there and it's not really making any money. More advanced concepts, and you can find these on YouTube all over the place. You can actually go to a different trustee or different trust, and you can use your HSA to buy things like the coin or real estate. I'm not into that alternative investments yet. Maybe one day I will be, but it's just easy to open up one at Health Equity and go invest in whatever Wall Street stocks, bonds, mutual funds, ETFs, and so forth you get in there. But that's something cool I want you to be aware of. You're not obligated to actually use it in the year. And you're like, what could you? And the nice thing is when you look at the stuff, what can you buy? You'd be surprised what you could write off on this in the future. So let's say your HSA goes really big, becomes a $50,000, $100,000 account over time. And then you're like, well, I need $10,000 for something else in your life, and you accumulated $10,000 worth of cost over the past 5 years. Well, you can just take it out of the HSA, and there's no taxes. That's pretty cool. So if you don't, what I always tell my patients, if you don't have to use your HSA, if you have enough cash flow from your personal income during that year, then just pay your copays, pay your medical bills, pay the dental costs out of your pocket, and then just keep the receipt in some Google Doc folder that you can put HSA deductibles at one point, and then you can just take that distribution out when you need that money for something else. Something to think about if you have the HSA, and if you're wondering, is the HSA same thing as the FSA? No, but they do use the same schedule or the same approved expenses that you can just go to this IRS website up here. Maybe if I'm smart enough, I'll put it down into the links, but it's this publication here where you can read up on the details on that. Hope that helps, guys. I know it wasn't related to directly related to healthcare or internal medicine, but it's related to the finances of healthcare. And I see this in the practice. People are just like, I got to use my HSA. No, you don't. You don't have to. I mean, if you have to because you don't have because the cost needs to be covered, I got it. Go ahead and use it. At least you put the money in. And then you're like, well, if you're eligible to get it, I just think it's you're hurting yourself by not at least just making that quick transfer to that account, and then you can put it right back into your own account, and then you get the tax deduction at least for that year, just by putting in. Hope that helps. I'll see you at the next video.